Overthinking is often misunderstood as a sign of intelligence, responsibility, or deep care, but in Buddhist understanding, it is more closely linked to suffering than wisdom. The mind believes that by constantly analyzing, replaying, and anticipating, it is protecting us from pain or failure. In reality, this endless mental activity usually creates more tension, anxiety, and exhaustion. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when the mind clings to thoughts as if they are facts, identities, or threats that must be solved immediately. Overthinking keeps us trapped in this cycle. When the mind is caught in excessive thinking, it is rarely present. It lives in memories that cannot be changed or futures that may never arrive. This separation from the present moment becomes a subtle form of suffering because peace only exists now. Overthinking convinces us that if we think long enough, we will reach certainty, but life itself is uncertain by nature. No amount of mental effort can eliminate that truth. From a Buddhist perspective, clarity does not come from more thinking, but from seeing thoughts as temporary events, not absolute truths. When we recognize overthinking as a source of suffering, rather than intelligence, we stop feeding it with our attention. This understanding is not meant to criticize the mind, but to free it. The moment we see overthinking clearly, it begins to loosen its hold, creating space for calm, insight, and inner peace. The mind has a natural tendency to drift away from the present moment and attach itself to the past or the future. In Buddhist teachings, this movement is seen as a major cause of inner unrest. When the mind clings to the past, it replays regrets, mistakes, and old wounds, often with the illusion that reliving them will bring understanding or closure. When it rushes toward the future, it creates worries, expectations, and fears, imagining problems that may never happen. In both cases, the mind abandons the only place where peace can be found. This constant wandering is not a flaw in your character. It is simply how the untrained mind operates. Buddhism teaches that the mind seeks control and certainty, and since the present moment cannot be controlled in the same way, the mind escapes into time. Yet the past is already gone, and the future has not arrived. Holding on to either is like trying to grasp smoke. By noticing this tendency without judgment, awareness begins to grow. Each time you gently bring attention back to the present, you weaken the habit of mental wandering. Over time, this practice reveals a simple truth. The mind does not need to solve the past or predict the future to be at ease. When it rests fully in the present, even briefly, a natural sense of calm and clarity begins to emerge. Buddhist wisdom was never meant to feel heavy, demanding, or restrictive. At its core, it is not a system of rigid rules, but a form of gentle guidance meant to ease suffering. The teachings do not tell you who you must become or how you must live your life. Instead, they offer simple observations about the nature of the mind and invite you to explore them through your own experience. This approach is deeply compassionate because it respects individual pace, struggle, and understanding rather than commanding obedience. Buddhist teachings encourage curiosity. You are not asked to believe blindly, but to notice what brings peace and what creates tension. If a thought causes suffering, it can be released. If an action leads to calm, it can be nurtured. This softness is what makes the wisdom so healing. There is no punishment for wandering thoughts, no failure in moments of distraction. Each moment is simply another opportunity to return to awareness. This gentle guidance helps dissolve the pressure many people place on themselves to be constantly improving or spiritually perfect. Buddhism recognizes that healing unfolds naturally when there is patience and kindness toward oneself. By approaching wisdom in this way, the mind relaxes instead of resisting. Growth becomes something that happens organically, not something forced. In that relaxed space, clarity and peace begin to take root without struggle. Awareness and compassion are the foundation of mental freedom in Buddhist teaching. Awareness allows us to see what is happening in the mind without becoming lost in it, while compassion softens the way we relate to our inner experiences. Together, they create a space where thoughts can arise and pass without control or conflict. Instead of fighting the mind or criticizing ourselves for overthinking, we begin to observe with kindness. When awareness is present, thoughts lose their power to overwhelm. You start to notice that a thought is simply a mental event, not a command, or a truth that must be obeyed. This observation alone weakens its grip. Compassion then steps in to replace judgment. Rather than labeling the mind as broken or weak, compassion recognizes that overthinking comes from a desire to feel safe, understood, or in control. This combination is powerful because awareness without compassion can become cold, and compassion without awareness can become passive. Together, they lead to freedom. Each time you meet a restless thought with gentle attention instead of resistance, you retrain the mind. Slowly, the habit of overthinking loosens. Freedom does not come from silencing thoughts, but from no longer being ruled by them with awareness. And compassion, the mind learns that it can rest, and peace becomes a natural state rather than a distant goal.